I'll never forget the morning I stepped out onto my porch, coffee in hand, and saw my fence-me pride, my sweat, my boundary smashed to splinters across the dirt. It wasn't just broken, it was obliterated, like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my life's work. And those hoof prints, stretching out toward the horizon, told me my herd was gone, scattered into the dawn. I'm Jake, by the way, and this is my ranch, hundreds of acres of rolling Montana grassland tucked against the shadow of the Rockies. That fence wasn't just wood and wire. It was my word, my shield, built with blistered hands over weeks of long afternoons. It kept my 200 bison safe, told the world this land was mine, earned through generations of grit. But someone decided it wasn't enough to keep them out. Someone named Linda, the HOA tyrant from the shiny new subdivision a mile down the road. She thought she could tear me down, show me who ran this valley. Oh, she had no idea what she'd started. At first, I thought it was an accident, maybe a storm, maybe a spook herd. But the cuts on those posts were clean, deliberate, like someone had spent hours with a saw, plotting my ruin. And Linda? She wasn't subtle. She'd been gunning for me since her cul-de-sac kingdom sprouted up, all manicured lawns and cookie-cutter houses. Nothing like the raw, open land I call home. My ranch predates her HOA by a century. My great-grandpa's name is etched in the deed, long before her clipboard and visor became the law around here. But that didn't stop her. Linda saw my land as a stain on her perfect community vision, a wild patch she couldn't tame. She started small letters in my mailbox, typed up on crisp HOA letterhead, whining about non-compliant landscaping or excessive livestock noise. I'd laugh, toss them to burn pile, and keep working. Then came the drive-bisher silver SUV creeping past my gate, her nose practically pressed to the window, scribbling notes like she was the sheriff of suburbia. Once, she stopped, snapped pictures of my barn, and had the gall to call it an eyesore. I leaned on the fence, staring her down, and said, "Linda, this barn's been here longer than your neighborhood. Maybe you're the eyesore." Her lips twitched, but she just smirked and drove off. That's when I knew she wasn't just annoying, she was dangerous. The harassment ramped up. One morning, I found a pile of gravel dumped across my access road, just enough to scrape my truck's undercarriage if I wasn't careful. The county said it wasn't their problem. HOA maintained that road. Then came the legal threats, a fat envelope stuffed with nonsense about my barn violating community aesthetic standards. My barn, built decades before her McMansions, was suddenly illegal? I laughed, but the pressure was building, like a storm you can smell before it hits. Linda wasn't just poking at me. She was trying to break me, to drag my ranch into her HOA empire, whether I liked it or not. I tried to play nice, even showed up to one of her HOA meetings to set things straight. Picture it, a stuffy community center, fake wood paneling, folding chairs lined up like a courtroom. Linda stood at the front, visor perched like a crown, her clipboard a scepter. I stood up, calm as I could, and said, "My ranch isn't part of your HOA. Never was, never will be. My land, my rules." The room buzzed. Some folks nodded, others whispered. Linda just smiled, tapped her pen, and said, "We'll see, Jake." That was her declaration of war. The final straw came one spring night. My dogs woke me, barking like the devil himself was outside. I grabbed my flashlight, pulled on my boots, and ran to the pasture. The beam caught the wreckage-Jimmy fence, gutted posts sawed clean through, planks scattered like bones. Beyond it, my bison were gone, their hoofbeats fading into the dark. I ran my hand over the cuts, splinters biting my skin. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage. And when I found tire tracks leading to the road, a crumpled HOA flyer caught in the mud, I knew exactly who'd done it. Linda. The rage hit hard, but it wasn't just anger, it was humiliation. That fence was my word, my work, and she'd torn it down like it was nothing. I stood on my porch the next morning, staring at the wreckage, my knuckles white. Neighbors drove by, some shaking their heads, others avoiding my eyes. Word spread fast. Linda made sure of it. At the feed store, I overheard the whispers. Jake's herd got loose. Can't even keep his fence up. Linda says he's a mess. She was turning my life into a punchline, and I was done letting her. The HOA meeting that followed was her victory lap. I walked in, boots dusty, hat low, and there she was, beaming at the podium, her slideshow clicking through photos of my broken fence, my bison on the highway, even me sweating over repairs. "This," she said, her voice dripping with smugness, "is what happens when we don't enforce standards. Jake's property is a danger to our community." The crowd murmured, some nodding like sheep. I stepped forward, my voice steady but sharp. "You talk about danger, Linda, but we both know who cut my fence. You did this to prove a point." The room gasped. Her smile didn't crack. "Prove it, Jake," she said, laughing. "Maybe if you followed the rules, your animals wouldn't be a problem." That laugh, it was a blade, and it cut deep. I walked out of that meeting with fire in my chest. Not just anger, but something sharper, clearer. Linda wanted a war. She'd get one. But not with letters or lawsuits. I wasn't playing her game. I had 200 bison, restless and raw, and they were about to become her nightmare. The idea started as a half-joke, sitting on my porch, watching the herd snort and paw under the moonlight. What if I let them loose, right through her precious HOA office? The more I thought about it, the more it felt right, not just revenge, but justice, a way to remind her that out here, her bylaws didn't mean a damn thing. I scouted the HOA officia beige box with a parking lot and hedges trimmed to perfection, a sign out front preaching community pride. Behind it, a slope led straight to my pasture. Perfect. I learned Linda's scheduled Thursday evening meetings, 7 p.m., her board packed into that office like sardines. I prepped the herd, spreading extra feed near the gate, getting them used to clustering there. I oiled the hinges, checked the paths, and kept my head down, letting Linda think she'd won. She even sent another notice, something about livestock noise. I smiled and filed it away. She had no idea what was coming. Thursday night arrived. The sky streaked with fire as the sun sank. I stood by the gate, the herd snorting behind me, their breath steaming in the cool air. From a distance, I heard cars pulling into the HOA lot, Linda's laugh cutting through the chatter. My hand rested on the latch, my heart pounding like a drum. "All right, boys," I whispered. "Let's show 'em what we're made of." I yanked the gate open. For a moment, nothing. Then the ground shook. The herd surged, 200 bison thundering down the slope, dust exploding around them. I jogged behind, watching as they hit the parking lot, asphalt cracking under their hooves, car alarms screaming. Inside the office, Linda was mid-sentence when the first bison crashed through the hedges. Chairs toppled, papers flew, and her clipboard hit the floor as she screamed, "What the hell is this?" Board members scrambled, diving under tables, squeezing through windows. Linda tried to herd them to the exits, but the exits where useless bison circled the lot, snorting, stomping, turning her perfect world to rubble. A massive bull rammed a window, glass shattering like confetti. Linda tripped, her rhinestone headband flying as she crashed into a potted plant, crawling through dirt while her empire crumbled. I stood at the edge of the lot, arms crossed, watching her scream, "This is your fault, Jake." I raised a hand, gave her a mock salute, and let her see my smile. For once, she wasn't in control. The chaos lasted maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like forever. Hedges flattened, light poles bent, the office a war zone of hooves and dust. Then, as if they knew their job was done, the bison turned and trotted back to the pasture, leaving silence and wreckage behind. The next morning, the town was alive with gossip. Reporters swarmed the office, filming the shattered windows and trampled flower beds. Linda tried to spin it, standing in front of the cameras, hair wild, clutching her broken clipboard. "Jake endangered lives," she barked. But the reporters weren't buying it. "Isn't his ranch outside your jurisdiction?" one asked. "What about those saw marks on his fence?" another pressed. Linda stammered, her mask cracking. Neighbors started talking. Old man Carter at the feed store swore he'd seen her SUV near my fence the night it went down. The truth was leaking out, and it was poison to her. The sheriff stopped by a couple days later, hat in hand. "Linda's pushing for charges, but you're clear," he said. "Fence was tampered with. Herd had a right to roam." I nodded, but I didn't need his words. I needed Linda to feel the weight of her own collapse. And she did. HOA members quit in droves, fed up with her obsession. Residents tore up her repair bills, shouting her down at meetings. "You brought this on us," one yelled. Her power slipped, meeting by meeting, resignation by resignation. Then came the final blow. I'd always known my family's deed covered more than the ranch itself. Tucked in my safe was a century-old survey map showing a 1-acre parcel under the HOA office me land. I took it to the county clerk, who stamped it with a grin. "Yours, Jake. Always has been." I walked into the HOA office, papers in hand. Linda was pacing, barking at the last 2 board members. She froze when she saw me. "What do you want?" she snapped. I laid the deed on the desk. "This office? It's on my land. Always has been. You've got 30 days to get out." Her face went white as she grabbed the papers, hands shaking. "This is a trick," she hissed. "Nope," I said, leaning in. "You built your empire on my dirt, Linda. Time's up." The board members read the deed, their jaws dropping. One muttered, "We can't fight this." Linda slammed the papers down, but she knew she was done. Over the next month, the office emptied out, furniture hauled off, notices shredded, the last of Linda's loyalists scattering. She fought, screamed, threatened lawsuits, but no one listened. On the final day, she stood in the doorway, visor crooked, clutching her clipboard like it could save her. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I looked her dead in the eye. "You tore down my fence, Linda. You started this. I just finished it." She stormed off, her heels clicking on the cracked pavement, fading into nothing. The office sits empty now, a husk of her ambition, windows boarded, weeds choking the lot. I thought about tearing it down, but I left it a reminder of what happens when you push too far. My fence stands tall again. My herd grazes in peace, and the land feels right, like it's breathing easy for the first time in months. Looking back, this wasn't just about a fence or Bison or Linda's ego. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to take what's yours, about finding strength when you're cornered. Linda thought power came from rules and fear, but out here it's grit, patience, and knowing when to unleash the storm. So what do you think? Was I right to let the Bison loose, or did I go too far? Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, and if you've ever faced your own Linda. Hit subscribe. EVE all got battles worth sharing, and I'm betting you've got a story of your own.